everybody. Welcome to the third webinar of this academic year in the CAQDAS webinars. These are organised by myself and my colleague Sarah Bullock from the CAQDAS Networking Project, which is based in the Department of Sociology at the University of Surrey. I'm Christina Silva. Our webinar today is going to be given by Silvana de Gregorio and Stacy Penna. Before they get started, I've just got a few little things to tell you about. So first of all, we already have a number of other upcoming webinars planned for the rest of the year and more in the new year. So do keep an eye on our website and our social media channels for information about those. And if you're interested in contributing to our webinar series, please do get in touch. We're really keen to hear from you, especially if you're a user of the CAQDAS package and you'd like to share your work in progress. All of our webinars are recorded and you'll be sent a link to the recording of this one afterwards, and all of the recordings of our previous webinars are on our YouTube channel. We've also got our software training courses in full swing this academic year, so have a look at our website for those coming up over the next few months. Some of them are being delivered online and others are happening in person on campus in Guildford. Okay, so just to tell you a little bit more about what's going to happen today. I'm really delighted to have Silvana and Stacy here today, who are going to together provide us with some insights into how visualizations tools can help us with the analysis process. They're going to focus on NVivo in their discussion as they both work for QSR International, who developed that CAQDAS package. Silvana is a sociologist and qualitative researcher who's been involved in teaching, consulting and writing on qualitative research and software use since the 1990s. She's a former academic and is currently QSR's research director, which is part of the product development and community team at QSR International. She's also a long-standing friend and colleague of the CAQDAS Networking Project. We've known each other for many years. And she's really a guru in the field, so it's great to have her here. Her colleague Stacy, who's here as well, has a background in educational research as well as in the software industry. And during her doctorate in education, Stacy used NVivo for both her literature review and her qualitative research and analysis. In her current work at QSR, she's supporting and building a wider research community around the use of software for qualitative analysis, and she's going to be sharing some exciting news about that endeavour later on as well, I think. Okay, so while Silvana and Stacy are speaking, please do feel free to post your questions or comments in the chat function. I will collate them and I will pose them to Stacy and Silvana when they finish their talk. So that's enough from me. Over to you. I think, Silvana, you're going to get us started, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much, Christina. So I am going to share my screen. Just a minute here. And yes, as Christina said, we're going to be talking about using visualizations for analyzing qualitative data. And thank you for that introduction, Christina. I think I don't have to add very much more, but yes, I am a sociologist and a qualitative researcher, and currently is academic research director. Stacy, if you want to say hello.
Hi, everyone. Looking forward to the discussion and the webinar.
Right. So what we're going to start with is looking at ways that visualizations can be used in qualitative research. And then I'll be talking about and showing you, demonstrating how visualizations have been used in real projects to organize data, to explore data, and to display data. So I shall get started here. And so I just want to emphasize that there are many ways that you can use visualizations in qualitative research. And I've sort of categorized them into three broad areas. You can use visualizations for organizing your material, so putting all your data in order. You can use visualizations for exploring your data, interacting with your data, looking for patterns, looking for similarities, looking for differences, that sort of thing. And visualizations can give you a much quicker, bigger picture of what's going on. And finally, you can use visualizations for explaining, for communicating with others about your data. So when you're presenting in conferences, in writing up in articles, etc., visualizations can often be used to very, very quickly communicate what may in words be quite complex ideas, but that you kind of, what they say, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words sort of thing. And I think people kind of think of visualizations more in that explaining presentation way. And I want to emphasize more in this presentation about how you can use it for organizing and exploration purposes. So, right, so we have a poll to get started with, and I will launch that poll just to find out a bit about you. And I'll show, so you can see here is, have you ever used visualizations and how? And so that poll, I've just launched the poll, so if you can go through it. And people go through it. And right, answer similar. Okay, so basically if I end the post, so it's quite interesting that 72% who've answered said they've used it for presentation purposes, which is what I expected. And 12%, only 12% have never used visualization, and only 20% have used it for organizing it, and 40%, I'll just share the results now so you can see that 40% have used it for exploration. Right, so that's why I want to actually focus on how you can use it for organizing and exploring your data. So I'll just stop the sharing there. Okay, close that. So I want to first talk about tables, because tables are one type of visualization that you can have. And I've taken this table from an article that's been written by Cloutier and Ravasi. You can see the citation at the top here. And I should mention that you will have access to these slides. So, you can peruse this in more detail on your own, in your own leisure. And I'm not going to go through this table completely, but I just want to make the point. It's very interesting in this article is that they show how tables can be used to visualize data over the course of a whole project. And you can see here, they actually have categorized it as tables for organizing, for analysis, and for display. And they actually start in the table right from the beginning when you start collecting your data, and they go through it. And actually, this table is on over 2 slides. So it goes to the second slide, and it goes all the way down to, It goes all the way down to when you're writing up. And if I go back to the first slide, I think what's interesting in the way they've done this as well is to show that some tables that you might start with when you're organizing your material, you can also later on use it for exploring your data for analysis purposes, and also for display. So for example, here, they say that, when you start, you might want to organize your material to keep track of the different types of data sources you have. Later on, you might want to review that table to make sure that you are using the full range of data sources, that that you're not focusing on one part or another. And then finally, when you're writing up or presenting at a conference, you can use that same table to present, the type and quantity of data collected. Um, so, um, so I'm not going to say much more about this, but you do have the PowerPoint slide, and also I do refer you to this article. As I said, there's the SIN strategic organization, and it was published this year. So this is just an idea that you can see the full range of how tables, which is one form of visualization, can be used throughout your whole project, for different elements when you're organizing, analyzing, or displaying. Right, so poll number 2 I shall launch. So it's looking at what visualizations you have used to explore your data. So I'll just launch this one. So they're coming in. Okay, so I'll just end the poll and share the results here. Yes, so what's interesting is, right, so tables, 68% of you have used to explore your data. And there's a tie between word clouds and diagrams. Yeah, 48% also between coding stripes and charts. I mean, coding stripes is a term that we use in Vivo to see against the text where you've coded. I know other CAQDAS packages have similarities, a similar thing to coding stripes as well. Right, okay. So I shall be, I'll stop sharing this and go into the next slide. So what you see on your screen here is actually from an article that Adam Long wrote. Now, Adam Long was the Chief Technical Officer of QSR, and he did a survey in 2017 looking at the use of NVivo visualizations, and there were 1,020 people who responded to that survey. So it's quite a good representative survey that he did. And he looked at two things: is how people used NVivo visualizations to explore their data, and the second slide that I'll show you in a minute is how people used NVivo visualizations to display their data. And what's interesting is, not surprisingly, 62% use the coding stripes, and that's sort of similar to what people in the poll here, in order to explore their data. 41% used word trees, and I'm going to be demoing word trees in a minute. For those of you who aren't sure what they are, I mean, basically it's when you text search for a word, you can visualize that results by having that word in the middle of the screen, and you have the 5 words before and after that appears with that word. Word clouds, I think you're all familiar. And I should say that these visualizations are still similar in the latest versions. I mean, we've tweaked them a bit, so our word clouds are prettier now, but charts are a bit better. It's interesting to see the sort of range that people have used, our mind maps, comparison diagrams, etc. But really the top ones are coding stripes, word trees, word clouds, and charts that have been used. If I look at the next slide here, you can see in terms of report and share information, actually what's interesting is the much lower percentage actually use the in vivo visualizations for that. But charts is number one. As you can see, coding stripes have sort of like gone down in terms, and word clouds and word trees are still up there. So so that's quite interesting. Again, that was back in 2017, how people have used, and that's a nice benchmark for us if we do this survey again to see if the use has increased or not. Stacy, if you want to take it over from here.
Sure. Thanks, Silvana. So to help sort of show the process of how you can use in vivo, but other types of qualitative data analysis softwares too, to help you with your visual insights. So you'd bring in your data into the package, into the software. So that could be text, audio, video, visual, like basically anything that's unstructured. You would go into in vivo or a similar type of software package, and then you can use in vivo to help you with the analysis. And we just have a list of different items that are in vivo. So for codes, for cases, charts, word clouds, word trees, maps, and matrices. And Silvana is going to show all this in vivo for you too. And the idea is that by using these types of visual analysis tools, you'll be able to tell a story. So you'll be able to tell how you organized your project, how you processed and analyzed the data, and then also to display for your end reports or publications.
Right.
And so just sort of to help you with that process, what we're going, so Silvana is going to be showing these, but if to help you show the organization of your project and your report and your research, if you want to show your study, you could do something with a mind map with participants. We have to show what's happening with your participants. You could do a crosstab, a project map, a case classification sheet. And then to think about you as a researcher, you might use memos or concept maps. And then to help with your analysis process, the visuals that might show patterns or concepts or the context. You'd have the word cloud, project map diagrams, and all these Silvana will show in the demo too. And then for display, where you need to show your end report, your dissertation, your journal article, your book, you'd be able to show patterns across themes and maybe relationships too. And so these are the different items in vivo that can help you with that.
Right. Okay. Thank you. So now I'm going to switch into in vivo and see all this in action. So what I decided, Christina had mentioned before when we were talking about setting up this webinar that people really wanted to see, in action, like, well, how do you actually use these visualizations? We can demo the visualizations, but how do you actually use them in practice? So we decided to show two real studies. One is a study that I did, which was looking at the impact on qualitative researchers of COVID-19 last year during the pandemic when we were in lockdown. So this is a real project that I did, and the other project is a project that was done by Pat Baisley. I don't know if you're familiar with Pat Baisley's work, but she's the mixed methods guru, published loads of stuff, and she actually gave to QSR so we can use it as a sample project, a real project that she did, obviously with modifications to anonymize everything, but it was on looking at an older women's network in Australia. So I'm going to start with my project, which is the impact of COVID-19 on qualitative researchers. And for that project, I started with a survey in April, May last year. And I just want to say that what you're seeing at the moment is a memo in the project, which is for this demo. This is going to show you what I'll be demoing one after another. And that's why I like NVivo. You can use memos for all sorts of things here. But as I said, was that I started with a survey, and what I wanted to do was in the survey, I asked people if they were willing for me to contact them to do follow-up interviews, and a lot of people said yes. And so what I needed to do in an administrative way was to decide how I was going to select the people for the follow-up interview. And I had a number of criteria, and the criteria was their position in terms of whether a doctoral student or early career researcher or whatever they were. I also wanted to know what country. I wanted a geographical spread of them, and also 3 disciplines I was looking at, which was education, sociology, and health, and reduce it like that. But also I wanted to reduce it on some of the qualitative answers they gave in terms of their home living space, whether it was adequate or not. So the first thing in order to do that, an admin thing, was to create a case was to use the case classification sheet, which has their demographics information. So if I just open that up here, because this is the answers, so these are all the respondents in the survey, and you can see this is, as I said, tables are visualizations, and these are all the answers to the closed-ended questions. But I was able to first identify, I needed to first identify those people who agreed to be interviewed. So would you be happy to, for me to contact them? So therefore, from this table, I could just filter for those who would want to continue the conversation with me in that way. And then, and so again, I could say that this table is actually created automatically when you import a survey in NVivo. So when you import a survey, it automatically creates this table of all the answers to the closed-ended questions. So this was a simple way for me. The first step is just to pull out those people who said, yeah, we're happy for you to contact me. So so that's an example of how you can use tables of visualization for admin purposes. But the thing is, as I said, was that I also wanted to I could also do it from the query, do a Crosstab query. Once I've done that, just having saved those who have agreed, I could do a Crosstab query just to find out about their, oh, that's the wrong Crosstab query, but that's another one. But I just wanted to, sorry. Okay. Let's see, what is it? Follow up in position. So that it's actually this one. Yeah. And so therefore I had here their this is their country they came from. So again, this was again, you can see it's been sort of just selected floaters. So it's just the people who have agreed to be contacted by me. But also I have what country they're from, so like United Kingdom here, what their position is, early career academic, doctoral student. And also I could identify, as I said, these were answers to the open-ended questions that I coded, whether they had a productive home workspace or inadequate home workspace. And I wanted sort of more or less equal numbers from either. And, from this sort of thing here, I could sort of identify, if I double click on that cell with the data set here, I could identify the IDs of the people who had an inadequate workspace in the UK, who were doctoral students. So again, that's another way to help, use the table again, to help visualize the data. Another way I could have done it is with the framework matrix. So framework matrices here, in this way, I'll just pull that out just to get that, and I can just hide the layout here of the associated thing. But you can see here again is that I have, these are the individual cases here, and I actually have the text of the open-ended questions here. And here is the sort of their characteristics. So this one person is from Kenya, early career academic in education, etc. So again, it's the way, another another table that you have here that actually has text together to help me decide, which, people that I would select for my follow-up. And for me to get a sense, a feel overall of, what I have in the survey in terms of, by country, by position, by discipline, I could actually create what's called a hierarchy chart. So that's under Explore, Hierarchy Chart. And I can have my cases here. And the classification is my survey respondents. SR stands for survey respondents. And then I can select what I'm looking for. So in this case, I wanted to check are you, what position they are, what is your subject, and in what country you live. And when I finish that, I get this table. And so you can see from this table, I mean, this is a really nice visualization because it's a chart rather than a table, because I can actually see the proportion. So I can see I have mainly doctoral students here, quite a few early career researchers, some not-for-profit, some established academics here. But I can drill down here. So if I want to, drill down into early academic career into health here, I can see here if I hover over it that, in this case, there's only one person there. And I can view the cases there, so that's just the one person. So I have their ID that way. Go back to the home thing, but again, this very quickly sees that who most of my people who responded to the survey are. So again, and that starts getting me thinking in terms of patterns that I might want to pursue. Also, sort of seeing what countries they're from, what subject area, etc., and sort of the balance of the people who are responding to me in this study. So that's another visualization we have here. I want to go on. So far, it's been mostly admin reasons for creating visualizations. But I want to move into exploring the data. And one of my favorite ways of exploring the data in NVivo is to start with a word cloud and move to a word tree. And I like to do word clouds on codes. So one of the codes, one of the open-ended questions that was in the survey was asking the question of how research has been disrupted by COVID-19. So if I just go into my area for codes in Vivo here.
Silvana, do you want to try stopping your share and then sharing again? It might be a Zoom thing.
Yeah, okay, I stopped the share.
So while you're doing that, so there was a question about this importing the survey, and I put a help link in it, but the importing surveys into NVivo is very easy, and it does a lot for you very quickly with the survey information. We do suggest there's a format. The biggest thing with the surveys when you import them is you just want the respondents in the first column. That's the biggest hint I can give you that makes it easier when you import. And we also integrate with Qualtrics and SurveyMonkey. So if you have an account with them, you can go right there and import it. I don't know if there's any. And I did put the link to the help menu that talks more about how to do that in NVivo if people are interested.
Right, okay. Right, so I am sharing my screen. So can you see NVivo now?
Yes.
Okay, so sorry about that. So what I've done is I've gone into my codes here, and as I was saying, that one of the open-ended questions was, can you tell us how your research has been impacted? And as you can see, I've actually already coded finally all of this, but starting out, what I would do, what I find really useful, is to start with a word frequency query. I'll start with that. And yeah, so I mean, obviously I can go through the word frequency query and add to the stop list, anything that I want to, but I'll leave it as it is at the moment. But I don't actually need the 1,000 most frequent. I'll just run it again just for the 100 most frequent. And look at the word cloud. There's a little tab there for the word cloud. And it's creating the word cloud. Right. So, not surprisingly, interviews, research, data online. I mean, the way the word cloud here work is, the larger the font, the more colorful it is, the more number of times that word was used. So remember, I'm looking at the code, the answers to a code. Can you tell us how your research was impacted by COVID-19? But one of the things that I was kind of interested in is, I can go through any of these, is looking at the word access. Now I can double click on this word access, and I would just get a list of the word access in context. But that would be a lot of text. So that's why I find it more useful, instead of doing that, is to run a text search query for access. So I can just right click over the word access, so I just done to do that. And obviously, I do get the reference, which is the list of, the words that were used in context. But what's more interesting and more informative to go through this is to click on the tab for the word tree. And as I said earlier on, what the word tree does is that it gives you the 5 words before the word in the middle that I've selected, and the 5 words after. I mean, I can increase that up here to more words. But what I find is that what I do is I sort of scroll up and I see, okay, so access is used with the word internet access. I can see they're talking about, with no access or access to. And I find the word tree really useful because this quick visualization gives me a sense of how the word access has been used in context. So if I look at access to, I can see here that people are saying libraries are shut down, so access to research material is wanting at this point. I can see here that many of them do not have internet or access to do a video conference. You know, I can't access, and then I would just scroll up to, you know, for necessary references or ethics review. So I think that that's what I find really useful to explore. And as I said, it's my favorite visualization to start with a word cloud, then on a code over a big sort of open-ended code, and then go into from the word cloud, do the text search to get to the word tree. And that gives me a much better sense now of what they're saying. So now she's saying rely now on snowball approach to gain access to informants that are potentially available. So if I click on that more, I think she actually says they can't rely now on that. So so that's a really useful visualization that for exploring your data that I highly recommend. And finally, just from this project, I'm just going to look at another way to explore data is to use crosstabs. So I'll just go back here and go down into my query results here. So this is, use of type of digital tools by status. Crosstabs and matrix tables in NVivo are really great to look at patterns in your data and to explore them. And with this one here, what I'm looking at is the use of different types of digital tools, collaboration tools, communication tools, data collection tools, etc. And I was just trying to explore whether there's a difference by your position as an academic. Is there a difference between doctoral students and early career academics or established academics or master's level students, etc. And I did the percentages here. So, for example, for the use of digital transcription tools, it's still rather low, but it's much lower for established academics compared to doctoral students. And another way to visualize this, besides the table visualization, is I can use a chart. And there's a number of different charts. You can see up here the chart table I can use. But I just wanted to show the heat map for this because this was just for me to see where most use of. So the darker the color in the blocks, the more people have answered. So again, we're looking at here collaboration tools, communication tools, data analysis tools, etc. And you can see how transcription tools, these are digital transcription tools, are still kind of low here. And I could sort of explore further that way. So that's, I'll stop with going through my project, but just showing you some of the tools, visualization tools I use. And I'm going to move into Pat Baisley's project, which actually you can have access to if you have NVivo, because that's one of our sample projects. As I said, it was a study that she did actually over a couple of years, sort of looking at these older women networks across Australia. And so this first thing I'm going to show you, which is a concept map, it can actually be used to start to organize your material and then explore and display. So it covers, all elements of the research process as it was. And I particularly like this one that she's done because, as you can see here, just move that out of the way, that she has here on the left-hand side all the data sources that she used in this project. So she had cultural domain data, coordinator meetings, annual survey she did, interviews, observations. So again, she's organizing her data sources. But what's also interesting was that she was extracting in this middle column the information that she gained from these different types of data sources. And as you can see, some of the information, like mental images of well-being, came from more than one type of data source. And then finally, she, in this final column, was able to, from the information gained, to say what kind of understanding that she gained from the analysis. And so, as I said, it covers both, the using visualization for organizing, for analyzing, and for display, ultimately. And because you start with this level, move to this level, and then finally, the final map itself could be used in an article or in a presentation to explain very clearly what she did. Yeah, okay. Right, so that's data and outcomes. Another simple visualization is that's very easy to do is once you've coded your data, you can just very easily chart the data to see what the codes you've used here. So you can very simply visualize and chart document coding. And you can see here, obviously this is the case note, so that's 100% coded to that. But you can see well-being, social connection in this one. So that's just sort of giving you the top list of codes that was using. And so nearly half of this particular document was coded about well-being. But also, you can also see how it works if I do a visualize it by a hierarchy chart of codes. So I could see how, so this reflects her coding structure. If I click on the codes here, so you can see here, here is the list of her codes, but you can see in this visualization that, again, it's a much clearer visualization in terms of where the bulk of the coding was about here. So as we said, most of it was about well-being, but there's a fair bit about physical activity and social connection, etc. So that's, again, for exploring your material very quick. She used, I'll just click it to the framework matrix again, looking at similarities, differences between interviewees in different wellness centers. So I just want to show the framework matrix here. Here. So you can see here, if I just hide associated view, she was able to go through, these are all her interviewees here, and actually be able to compare them about what they're saying here about well-being, wellness, and the interrelationship between health and well-being. And that's a very quick way just to make comparisons there. The other thing is the comparison diagram that she actually showed in her memo on reflections here. And you can see how she just pasted in her memo the visualizations, but she was comparing the code for being active and social connection. And as you can see here, again, is exploring that everyone coded as being active is also coded as social connection, but not necessarily vice versa. So that's a very simple, if I go into a close here, a diagram between, compare with mobility. And she did that first with her interviews, and now this one is going to show the whole thing with all of her the survey people as well in the survey. And as you can see, there's still, I did it wrong with mobility and balance. But again, it's a way that you can quickly explore similarities and differences between, in this case, the use of different codes. So just close that down. And yeah, and just the final thing is how she uses maps. She started with a theory of change here, which is quite complex when she started, and then she reduced it in the end after her analysis into this thing we get: social aspect, cognitive, mental, and physical aspect of well-being. So I'll stop there. I hope I've given you several ideas of how you can use in vivo. Visualizations. I mean, I'm showing you how you can use them in vivo, but all right. So I just want to go back to.
So we did include screenshots of the different visuals that Silvana showed you, and that's in the PowerPoint presentation that Christina will share with you too.
Yeah, so you can see here, I've just shared all of those. So if we have questions, I don't know, Stacy.
So if people, we had some questions that I sort of answered all along the way, but feel free to type in questions. We just wanted to share some exciting things that are coming up with the community and research at QSR. So Silvana will share the early career research grant information first.
So we're still accepting applications for the QSR Early Career Research Grant. The deadline is the 30th of November, and it's $25,000 over 2 years for the best qualitative or mixed method study using NVivo. And if you go on our website, there's a web page that will give you much more information about that, or you can contact me about it. Stacy, if you want to talk about.
Sure. So since part of my responsibility is building a community of researchers around qualitative and mixed methods research, not just around NVivo, but in general, one of the things is I have organized different webinar series. So we have one now with analyzing qualitative research after the interview. And so it started in October and goes through May. These are live, but we then put them in our on-demand section on our website as recording. So if you missed one, you can still watch it. So you can see we have some great qualitative researchers that will be presenting. So these are all free. Feel free to register and share with your colleagues and students. And then we also are doing a scholarly writing webinar series, and this started in September and it's going through February. So we've had great feedback on these, great content. So again, feel free to register. And I also am organizing NVivo research networks, and these are going through until November 18th. Basically, it's like a user group meeting. Trainers organize these, and our topic is actually, looking at using NVivo with visual insight. So, if you want to learn more, feel free to register for one of those with that link. And the handout that will be in the chat, that all the links are live, so you just can go to the handout and use it. And then just please join the community. If you join the community, basically it allows me then to reach out to you to just let you know about upcoming events. And I have a podcast that has great. We just did. I posted 2 podcasts with Virginia Clark about thematic analysis. That was really fun to do. And then also any of our webinar series, and we can send you that information.
Right. Okay, so are there questions?
Oh, that's great. Thank you both very much. It's Christina. I'm here again. Thanks so much for that, both of you. Really interesting and thought-provoking presentation, Silvana, and some great activities going on at NVivo that I'm sure lots of people are really interested in. While we're waiting for anybody to post any questions in the chat, I think the questions that we already had in the chat, Stacy has answered in the chat along the way, but I've got a couple of questions if you don't mind. So can I ask those while we're waiting to see if any others come through?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay, so Silvana, first of all, you talked about using the word tree as a great way to explore context as one of those early exploration activities, and you said it was one of your favourite visualizations to start with in NVivo. So I was just wondering whether that's something that you would use whatever analytic method you're using, or whether you think that that's a kind of activity that's particularly useful for certain types of analytic method.
Yeah, I mean, basically nowadays, the kind of research that I do is thematic, would be under thematic analysis. So it's very useful for that. But I think I don't know, for other, if you're looking at the context, if you're looking at language, if you're doing research and that's more looking at how language is used, I think it could also be very useful in that way, because you're immediately getting into the context of a particular word or phrase that you have. So yeah, I think obviously, yeah, these are tools that you can adapt to your own needs and be flexible with. But yeah, I think it might be interesting for some forms of narrative analysis or discourse, just to get a sense of what's going on in the context. But as I said, nowadays, basically what I'm doing is thematic analysis, which is quite useful. Yeah.
So that's interesting. We've got a little comment from Christina in the chat, actually, different Christina. She says, can the word tree be used to explore data in IPA, interpretive phenomenological analysis?
Yes, I think it can. As I say, I don't use that. But I think I think I throw the question back to her in terms of what would she be looking for in a word tree, if you're doing that form of analysis. And sort of work backwards from that. That's sort of like my response to that. You can see what you can do, because you can explore further. In a word tree, if I go back to NVivo, if I go back to my original, what was it? It was a code that you could keep drilling and drilling down with it. So everything's a bit slow here for me to sort of go into it. Yeah, so as I said, it's easy to start with the word cloud, and then from the word cloud to move into a word tree, and you can go backwards and forwards between the two. Yeah.
So one of the things I was thinking when you were demonstrating that, Silvana, was the idea that the word cloud is focusing on an individual word, but you talked and showed really nicely how the words that come before or after, which are effectively phrases maybe, are giving us more in-depth understanding. So I was thinking, you can, for a discourse or content analysis maybe, then it's also about maybe starting to build sort of your own sort of lists of synonymous terms that you might then search for in a text search maybe.
Yeah, that you can. This is, as I said, you see from here, I could run a text search query from access to, and then get another word tree.
Yeah.
Whoops, I don't know what's happened there, but anyway, you can keep. Oh, I know why, because I think 2 is in the stop list. So that's why I didn't do it. So therefore, I would have to remove 2 from the stop list if I want to do that one. I just say, why did I do that? That's why. Yeah, but the thing is, okay, internet access, I'll do that. Run a text search on that. And then I get the word tree here, internet access. And so you can keep sort of drilling in, and then then going back to that earlier result and drilling in another way and seeing in the context. And actually, I have better examples in other projects, where you have a lot of data and lots of ways of particularly word has been used. And you can just scroll up and down and just see that context. So, yeah.
Actually, that leads on to one of my other questions, if you don't mind. So I think we all sort of talk when we teach and discuss qualitative research about what good practice it is to kind of take notes along the way. So all of those ideas that you have when you're exploring data, like you're talking about now, capturing those thoughts and interpretations kind of throughout the research cycle. And obviously software like NVivo is really great for that because it's got lots of different spaces to write and capture those reflections. So I just wondered if you had any thoughts or advice with regards to note-taking about the interpretations and thoughts that stem from the visualizations that you've shared with us today.
Yeah, I mean, I briefly showed you one example from Pat's study. So if I go into her memo on reflections, is that you can see here is she is reflecting on the data, taking notes, and she's actually copying and pasting some of the visualizations in there.
Yeah.
As she's done here, she's also copied and pasted this table in there, and then this is a network diagram that she's as well incorporated. So yes, I think I mean all these packages have features for memoing, and I think it's very valuable that the memos aren't just words, but are have the visualizations. And I said this visualization, which is a comparison diagram, I think is very telling, because she's looking at health and well-being in these centers, and they do activities, and why they're doing activities. Does that lead to social connection? But she's saying is that those who are talking about social connection, not everyone is also being active, and that sort of leads to further things to explore in the data. So I mean, I think as you can see, she's got many memos here. I'm a bit worried to show my memos because I haven't totally anonymized them. I don't. Yeah.
The other thing that Pat's doing in that memo is kind of evidencing her account, isn't she? By not just writing, but putting those visualizations in there, which of course is really important. Okay, great. There have been a couple of other questions, but luckily Stacey's been fielding those in the chat in the meantime, so that's great. So I think we're running out of time, so I'm just going to take over, if you don't mind, and share my screen again, and just to thank you both once again for a really interesting and very grounded in the reality of research practice presentation. So thank you very much for that. I very much enjoyed it, as I'm sure everybody else did. For those of you who are still here, thank you for being here. We hope you found it interesting and useful, and that you'll tap into some of the community events activities that Stacy told us about. We also hope that you will join us for some of the remaining webinars that we have coming up. I went a bit too slow, a bit too fast there. We've got a couple coming up still, and as I said earlier, we do have the YouTube playlist, so I will be sending you all an email with the link to the recording once that's up on our channel, and also the slides will be coming your way too. So I thank you very much. It's Friday evening, it's dark outside now here where I am, so good job we turned our lights on earlier. Thank you very much for joining us. Have a lovely weekend, stay safe and keep well, and see you soon.
Yes, thanks very much, Christina.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone.
Okay,
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.